Well, g'day, welcome back to John a Day. Sorry today is a day late. I made a mistake. I didn't realise I was supposed to be on. But regardless, I'm happy to be here with Liam. We're going to be looking through John chapter 5, verses 16 to 18. And we're going to share our thoughts on that. So, I'll read it out and then we'll both share what we think of the passage. From verse 16. So because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jews persecuted him. Jesus said to them, "My Father is always at his work to this very day, and I too am working." For this reason, the Jews tried all the harder to kill him. Not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. And so, this passage, it's a very spicy one. Jesus is kind of provoking the Jews because they've got this idea that the Sabbath needs to be kept with no work. And what stands out to me is not exactly that, but I think more the fact that Jesus is able to work on the Sabbath. So
me and Josh both agreed that the last part of 18, where is it? Not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father and making himself equal to God. That was the bit that most stood out to us. But to fully appreciate the intensity of that, we had to put ourselves in context with the verse. So we imagined ourselves as Jews listening to or watching Jesus work on the Sabbath and realize how big of a statement that was and what Jesus was trying to achieve by doing it.
It's almost like you go to Sydney, some random guy from Mount Druitt or St Mary's going to Sydney, claiming to be the Son of God, and turning everyone's ideology upside down. It's unheard of, and it's really, really provocative. And I think that's what Jesus is trying to do here, because people have this really messed up idea of what the Sabbath should be, when in reality, the purpose of the Sabbath isn't to not work just for the sake of it. If you flip back to Exodus 20, you'll see that it says, "Keep the Sabbath holy." And what could that mean other than, devoting it to God? That's right. And so I think my question from the passage comes down to what Jesus said in verse 17. What does it mean that his Father is always at work to this very day, so he's working? It's something that's a little bit confusing.
We also questioned what was so important about the Sabbath, so that's why we went back and looked at the importance it had. And then we discussed that Jesus was working for the Lord, and that made it right.
I think we both kind of came to the conclusion that it's probably to do with the kind of work you're doing. So, are you doing work for yourself on the Sabbath, or are you doing work for the Lord? And I guess that ties in nicely with what we came to for our application of the passage. So our application was to do with, what kind of work we do on the Sabbath. Are we actually taking a day of rest to devote it to the Lord, or are we just working 24/7 without having time to rest and focus on God's word? Final thing is, what would you say to someone about this passage? For me, it would be about, I said from verse 17, what does it mean for Jesus to call himself equal with God? I guess that goes back to what your standout from the passage was. You know, is it controversial these days to say that Jesus is God?
Yeah, that was another standpoint we had. I think, what was my application? Right. No applications.
No, that's fine. It was to do with...
Okay, just a way to bring this verse up with a non-Christian, I thought, was just asking them, are you working on like Sundays? And if so, what do you think that's?
And like, what does the Sabbath mean to you?
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, that's fine. So it's a really provocative passage, but in a really, really good way. Jesus is showing us that, you know, the purpose of the Sabbath isn't just to follow rules for the sake of it, but actually to devote it to the Lord, and something that I think we'll struggle with quite often. So thank you for joining me, Liam. Thank you for helping out with this. We're going to finish up the video now. We'll pray once the video's over. And yes, hopefully we'll see you soon.
That was a bit jank.
Yeah.
So
Leave a like and subscribe.
we can cut those bits out.
Yeah.